Run It Studios and the Arthritis Foundation of Missouri bring you this special episode of the Run Radio Podcast. Welcome back to the Run Radio Podcast. With our partnership with the Arthritis Foundation of Missouri, we get to talk to a lot of people who are impacting the community. And today, one of those joins us, Kayley Delashmit with a BHC, which is the Business Health Coalition in St. Louis. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Trina. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah. So what does it mean to be a Business Health Coalition?
That's a great question because I think not many people know what an employer coalition is. So the Business Health Coalition has, a couple dozen similar coalitions across the country, but the Business Health Coalition is a membership organization for employers. And we have a lot of employers in the St. Louis, Missouri area, but we're really coast to coast in nature. And what we do is we provide a convening space for employers to talk about what their challenges are. And those challenges can look like healthcare spend when they're supporting their employees. It can look like talking about their strategies going into the next year, holding the healthcare systems accountable. My background is in public health, and they didn't talk about coalitions, but they probably should have, because at the end of the day, a lot of people are on an employer-sponsored plan, and employers are the ones making decisions on how their employees can access healthcare. And we know that healthcare is expensive, and we know that it's so important to just our overall health and well-being. And so we're here to help employers inform their HR and benefit strategies. And our long-term goals are to impact health and well-being overall for, just the everyday worker.
What would be the difference between you guys and just insurance?
Yeah, that's another good question. So we aren't a third-party administrator. So we are not an insurance company like the Uniteds, the Cignas, the Bucas of the world. We are a nonprofit that is a membership organization for the people who are administering benefits at those companies to come to our meetings and stay on top of trends. We develop resources for them, which is part of what I was going to talk about today, and how we put free resources in front of them to set themselves up and their employees for success, both financially, health-wise. And so that's the big difference. We are a small nonprofit in a big for-profit space, just trying to help employers and people at the same time.
So would you even help guide them in their insurance selection process, maybe? Give them those resources that they would need when they're trying to pick?
So not exactly, because we're not benefits consultants.
Okay.
Most employers will work with a consultant a consultant or a broker who's going to advise them on that decision. Our role is primarily to convene and educate.
Okay.
So most people in a specialized field, they go to conferences so they can meet with other leaders and other experts and talk about what they should be doing, see if they're, struggling with the same things. And that's really our role. We try to stay away from the directly advising space, actually, because we're employer partners, not employer advisors.
I see. Okay. And do you primarily work with small businesses or larger corporations, or all of the above?
It's all of the above. So BHC members are as small as companies with 200 lives in their entire employee population, all the way up to employers with 50,000 lives.
Okay.
And so we really run the gamut. We have employers that are fully insured. We have employers that are self-insured. But what we found is that at the end of the day, all employers care about keeping their workforce healthy. And so that's what we care about. And I'm sure, as you can imagine, arthritis plays a good deal with that, because arthritis is a chronic condition that's very costly. It contributes to absenteeism, presenteeism, short-term disability, long-term disability, you name it, it's there. And so there's a great opportunity here for us to work with the Arthritis Foundation to bring attention to it.
Yeah.
And then also just create a general level of understanding and awareness. Because I think there's some stigma that kind of surrounds arthritis as well that isn't really
Mhm.
talked about in the workplace as much. So
Exactly.
not to get too far ahead of myself.
No, you're exactly right. A lot of times when you're pushing to, function at a certain level, when you have trouble, it's a lot of extra work. That's when it can be seen. And that's when problems or issues, I shouldn't say problems, but issues can arise that need to be resolved between coworkers, employers, all the working parts of being in a workspace. So
Mhm.
I'm glad that you are partnering with the Arthritis Foundation. How did you guys even cross paths to begin with?
So a few months ago, Dolores, the executive director, she reached out to our president and CEO looking to explore that partnership. So timely enough, we have that executive director retired, Louise Probst. She served the BHC for nearly 30 years. But this meeting in particular, we're like, you know what? Let's get you on the books with Laurel, our new president and CEO, so that we can make sure it stays top of mind for this coming up on 2025, and talk about how we can work it into our strategic planning.
Good.
And so we had that initial conversation. We talked about the Arthritis at Work program. We talked about some upcoming events that the Arthritis Foundation had coming up, and if BHC had the opportunity to attend, as well as the putting the Arthritis Foundation in front of our employer members at our upcoming annual meeting on November 7th at the Ritz-Carlton, which we think is a really great opportunity because there's a lot of people in that room that have to deal directly with the health and well-being of employees in the St. Louis area and across the nation. And so just trying to put each other, in front of the microphone where
Yeah.
those opportunities are available, I think is what came out of that conversation.
Good. Very good. What are some of the resources that you are talking about that you really want people to be aware of, especially when it comes to the free ones that are available?
Yeah, so I think in particular, we plan on putting the Arthritis at Work program in front of our employer members. So the BHC does what we call employer toolkits, and they are member specific resources. However, on our website, we have toolkits dedicated to different diseases and conditions that are prominent in populations.
Mm.
And so the goal is to take that free resource, which is a wonderful resource, and there's no financial barriers there, and put it in a plug and go format for employers to be able to reference and implement with their employee populations. So that's one example. Another example of free resources that we do for our members here at the BHC are quick surveys. And I wanted to speak about this briefly because it spoke to the importance of talking about arthritis in the in the workspace. 67% of employers identified caregiving and support benefits as something that was a burden for their employees. And that's important because arthritis is going to be lumped into those chronic conditions that, employees need to support their loved ones for. There's others, arthritis, diabetes, you name it, but we have an aging population that is facing an increasing burden of chronic conditions, and we have to start addressing them. Throwing a prescription at it isn't doing it anymore. And so how can we support employers by putting resources like the ones I mentioned directly in front of them so that they know there's a problem, they have tangible resources to address the problem, and it's going to it's the long game, right?
Yeah.
So I think those are a couple of examples, but we are continuing to think about more strategic ways that we can, tackle this problem in partnership with the Arthritis Foundation.
I see on your website you have events listed. Now, are these for members only, general public, both? What kind of things do you have going on?
We have both. So we have member specific meetings, educational webinars that are really more tailored to HR and benefit folks anyway. So I don't know that the general public would even be interested in attending those or would really get a ton out of it. But our annual conferences every year, we host two, are open to the public. Our annual meeting this year is on November 7th. The agenda is from 8 to noon at the Ritz-Carlton, and we're going to be talking about employers driving change in the healthcare space and cool things that our employers are doing, again, to improve the health of their employees, but also to hold healthcare systems accountable, which is a little bit beyond the scope of this conversation. Nonetheless, that's an example of a public meeting. Our community forum in the spring is also always open to the public. And then we are going to be hosting an innovation forum in December. And that event is also open to the public. There's a registration fee, but you don't have to be a member to attend. That's on December 12th from 8 a.m. to 10. And that's really meant to be a space for people to come and learn about new solutions looking to improve health in a very specific way. So we host all sorts of events. I encourage anybody who has questions about what kinds of events we have and if they could benefit from them to check out our website. And, obviously they're always welcome to reach out to myself or another BHC team member if they have more specific questions on what's appropriate for what they are hoping to get out of them.
Do you have virtual options?
For some meetings, we do. It's very specific because we try to engage populations on a national scale. That being said, it becomes a little challenging to get a good in-person group when there's always a virtual option available. And so we try to have a healthy balance of in-person and virtual options.
Okay. When you're getting people attending these meetings and asking the questions, what are the things that are top of mind for them? What do they feel like they are needing more of in the workplace when it comes to making health a priority?
Yeah. So when we talk to employers, there's three conditions that are costing them a lot of money and posing quite a burden on their employee populations. And time again, we've heard diabetes, cancer, and musculoskeletal indications. And musculoskeletal, as you can imagine, is going to tie very closely in with arthritis.
Yeah.
And so these are the conditions that we need solutions for and that employers want to help improve so that their employees are healthier. There's tons of other conditions looped in there as well. But at the end of the day, as employers are trying to balance this the scale between financially supporting the healthcare of their employees and then also just trying to keep their doors open, they have to make priority decisions every now and then. But with MSK being at the top in the top three, sometimes even number one or two consistently across our nearly 70 leading businesses, it's time to act. It's time to be strategic and it's time to address root causes. It's not time to throw prescriptions at it anymore.
Right. So when those are brought to your attention, do you usually have a plan ready to go, or do you have to go to the drawing board, and what does that look like?
So a lot of the times it looks like us reaching out to community partners.
Okay.
It's us reaching out to people like the gurus in the space for building the solutions and asking them, tell me what you have for employers and their employees, and tell me how it's different than all the other solutions in this space right now. So it'd be like us reaching out to some of the vendors similar to those that will present at our innovation forum. And then other times it's opening the dialogue between our employer members, right? Because some of them know just how to reach their employees and know the right communication strategies, know what resonates with employees. And then others, maybe they haven't, opened that door yet, or they haven't tried that channel of communication. And so it's a combination of us doing research in the field and bringing that back to employers and saying, these are what your concerns were, and this is what we found for you to consider. And then also, well, Company A said that they had a lot of success with their X communication campaign when it comes to MSK. Maybe Company C would like to hear about it, and then connecting them with one another. I think people underestimate the power of networking and just being connected to other leader experts and really try to emphasize and capitalize on the network that we've built in our membership.
Do you think that sometimes they forget that networking would be needed on that topic of health, that they, always think business, 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 and forget how valuable it can be to be networking for other topics within that business.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, who doesn't get their head, who doesn't get face down in their work and just
Yeah.
get caught up in the day-to-day functions once in a while? Um, so of course, it's easy to forget, depending on what things you're juggling at the moment. And I will say that our contacts at these companies, these benefit and HR leaders, they're juggling a lot.
Yeah, they are.
They're juggling a medical benefit, a pharmacy benefit, vision, dental, mental health benefits. Health and well-being is just one piece of a very large pie. But it's such a critical piece because we know that an ounce of prevention is worth over a pound in cure, right? And so we have to start making people healthy before these chronic conditions set in and start to cause a big barrier. I think the other thing that employers realize is how important a healthy workplace and a healthy mindset in a workplace is to the longevity of their employees, because the average person is going to spend a third of their lifetime at work. And that's going to be a really long third if we don't feel financially, physically, socially supported. And, again, we're here to play the long game. So, yes, they do forget to network, but we're here to remind them and make the connections that they aren't able to make on a daily basis, because it's our job to connect them with resources and others, whereas their job is to administer benefits. And so we're here to do that.
You guys have been around since 1982. Have you seen the need for working with you guys really grow since COVID, or has it been about the same, or what's that been like in the past few years?
I think the need to partner with a trusted voice in the healthcare space is always growing,
Uh-huh.
because the healthcare landscape is constantly evolving and changing. And COVID was an excellent example of that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, benefits and HR team members had to figure out how to administer a benefit when everyone was at home. And they had to figure out how their employees were going to continue to get care. They had to implement a virtual care model, or they had to figure out setting people up just accessibility wise at home so that they were able to continue to contribute work wise. And so I may be a little biased because obviously I'm going to believe that the work we do here at the BHC is extremely important, but healthcare is not going to slow down. And so we got to keep up with it. And so I would say that it's going to continue the value of being a BHC member and the work that we are doing is going to just continue evolving with the healthcare landscape.
Now, if somebody's watching and listening and they're thinking it's time for me to join, how do they connect with you guys and get involved?
Yeah, so there is obviously our website is a great place to get started. We have our membership booklet and resources listed there. Also, they are welcome to reach out to me directly. I am over membership services, so I'm happy to have that conversation. I can be reached at K Delashmit, DELASHMIT at stlbhc.org. And, I, like I said, I would love to have every company in the St. Louis area and the ones that fit well across the country as members of the BHC, but we're here to be partners. And so in whatever capacity as an extension of your HR and benefits team. So the website's a great place to start. You can outreach to me directly. And we're also happy to provide employer references if somebody were interested in that as well.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for sharing. Glad you're partnering with the Arthritis Foundation. Hopefully, as that relationship progresses, we'll have more to talk about and you can come back and have another episode with us. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Be sure you're watching, following along at runradio.net. You can also connect with Arthritis Foundation Missouri or a chapter close to you when you link over from arthritis.org.